just turned 50. I've never really been the kind of guy who makes a big deal out of birthdays. Never have. But this time, I hoped. After all these years of living quietly, enduring silently, I thought maybe 50 might mean something. A small moment even. A sign I hadn't been forgotten. 3 weeks before the day, my 3 sons, Salvador, Franklin, and Damien, called me. They said they wanted to throw me a birthday party. A special one. And I felt something flicker inside me. Something warm. Something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Since the divorce, all I've gotten were the occasional Thanksgiving text. Awkward half-hugs at Christmas. But this time, they reached out. I bought a new shirt. Blue-gray. The kind my ex-wife Eloise once said made my eyes look softer. The party was held at a craft beer tasting room in town. Franklin's friend manages the place. It wasn't a big crowd, maybe 30 people. Some old co-workers, a few distant cousins, and Bernice. She came too. Sat there, poised and polished as ever. Like nothing had ever broken between us. I didn't think much of it. Maybe she just wanted to be civil for the boys. I smiled, shook hands, thanked people for coming, had a few beers, and for a while, I felt okay. Like I belonged again, if only for a night. Then, around 8 p.m., Salvador tapped his glass. Now for the most special part of the evening, a gift for Dad. The lights dimmed, a projector screen rolled down. I thought it might be old photos, maybe some goofy memories from when the boys were little, things I used to treasure. But no, the title hit the screen in big, bold letters. Eugene Wilson, A Life of Failure. Laughter rippled through the room. They thought it was a joke, some roast-style gag. It wasn't. What followed, 16 straight minutes, was a nightmare, playing in full color. Bernice narrated it, her voice steady, casual, like she was telling stories over brunch. She talked about my failures as a husband, as a father, as a man. She brought up things I'd forgotten, things I tried so hard to forget. The time I botched the deck repair, the time I bought Damien the wrong shoe size, the time I said no to a video game Franklin wanted. She even talked about how I couldn't satisfy her in bed. And the room laughed. People I once called family, they laughed. At the end of the video, my 3 sons stood shoulder to shoulder and announced they were changing their last names. From Wilson, my name, to Garza, their mother's maiden name. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't throw my beer glass. I stood up, looked each of them in the eyes and said calm and steady, "Thank you for the party." Then I walked out, alone, into the night, without looking back. I don't remember exactly how far I drove after I left that party. All I recall is a stretch of highway, headlights on high beam, cold wind smacking the windshield, and inside me a strange kind of emptiness. Not grief, not rage, just stillness, like something had died, or maybe something had finally woken up. I got home a little before midnight. Same small, quiet house, same creaky front steps, same wedding photo of me and Bernice hanging in the hallway, untouched for years. That night I walked right up to it, took it down, slid it into a drawer. Not out of anger, but because it was time. Time to close the chapter. For good. Next morning, 6 a.m., my phone started ringing. Salvador, I let it ring out. Then Franklin, then Damien, then Bernice. I muted it, but I didn't turn it off. I wanted to hear what they'd try to say. First text came from Salvador. "Dad, I'm sorry if the video came off too harsh. It was just a joke. You've always been too serious. That's why it's hard to connect with you." Franklin was more blunt. "I don't get why you walked out like that. You know that was our way of trying to help you see what needs to change. 'Cause we sure weren't going to wait for you to figure it out on your own." Damien, the quiet one, just said, "You're not mad, right?" And Bernice, the woman who once meant everything to me, she sent a long, winding message. Half apology, half accusation. "The kids just want you to be better. You've always avoided emotion, live like a ghost. They need a role model, not a joyless man with the title of father." I read them all, said nothing. Later that day, Vic, an old friend, dropped by. We sat out on the porch, 2 cold beers between us, evening breeze brushing past like it knew something was different. He chuckled, slapped a hand on my shoulder. "Eugene, your own flesh and blood turned on you? If it were me, I'd cut every single one of them off. Don't be the fool who keeps wiring money to people who laugh in your face." I just nodded, didn't say a word. But inside, something stirred. Something I hadn't felt in years. I didn't want to be the man they pitied anymore. I didn't want to be the joke. That night I opened my laptop, a device I rarely touched, logged into the bank, started scrolling. $1,200 a month to Salvador for rent. $8,000 to Franklin over the last 2 years, all marked urgent expenses. Damien's tuition for this semester, paid in full 2 weeks ago. I printed every statement, line by line. Then for the first time in years, I did something I used to be afraid of. I shut it all off. Every payment. Gone. No warning. No explanation. I cut the cords one by one, like ropes that had kept me tied to a past that no longer deserved me. And that night, I slept. Not restlessly, not half awake. I slept a full night, dreamless, like a man who'd finally taken his name back. 3 days after I cut off all financial support, my phone started blowing up like an overheated furnace. First came a text from Salvador. "Dad, the bank just flagged a missed rent payment. Did you forget to send it this month?" I read it, didn't reply. Then Franklin called. 1 a.m. His voice was slurred, heavy with booze. "Dad, I've got an emergency. I lost a bet, but it's nothing major. Just a couple grand. You've always had my back before, right?" Still, I said nothing. Next morning, Damien texted a screenshot of his tuition bill, marked overdue, registration blocked. His message? "What kind of lesson are you trying to teach me here?" I stared at my screen and laughed. What kind of lesson? A lesson in consequences. A lesson in respect. A lesson in what happens when you kick the man who carried you your whole damn life. I called the bank, confirmed that every scheduled payment under my name had been canceled. Then I called my lawyer, had a few key documents updated, and finally, I set a dinner date. I sent a single message to all 3 of my sons and Bernice. This Saturday, 6 p.m. At the old house. We need to talk. Don't bring expectations, bring the truth. I knew they'd come, not because they missed their father, but because they missed the wallet. And me? I'm not the wallet anymore. Saturday, 6 p.m. I stood in the kitchen of the house that used to be the heart of my family. Now it was just the ticking of an old wall clock and the quiet bubbling of beef stew on the stove. I'd cleaned everything like I was expecting special guests. But really, I was just waiting for the truth to show up at my door. Then came the doorbell. I opened it. Bernice stood first in line, wrapped in an expensive wool coat, her usual look of superiority still present, but softened by exhaustion. Salvador stepped in, eyes sweeping the room like he was appraising what was left. Franklin trailed behind, texting, barely slipping his phone into his pocket. And Damien didn't meet my eyes, just mumbled a hello. I nodded, said nothing, gestured for them to come in. The table was set, 1 seat for each of them, 1 hot plate each. Beef stew, the same kind I used to make on cold winter nights when they were little. No one touched their forks. "What's going on, Dad?" Salvador asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned on the TV, plugged in my laptop, and hit play. It was the same video they played at my birthday party. The fake laughter echoed through the living room like a ghost. Eugene Wilson, the failed father, the inadequate husband, the man who couldn't even be a man. I didn't look at the screen. I watched their faces. Bernice sighed and checked her watch. Salvador leaned back, lips pressed tight. Franklin winced. Damien looked like he was breaking apart from the inside out. When the video ended, I shut off the TV. The silence in the room was deafening. I opened a drawer and placed 4 manila folders on the table, 1 for each of them. Inside, you'll find every dollar I ever paid for you, every tuition, every loan, every mortgage payment, even the ones I never talked about. I paused, then turned to Bernice. There's also copies of the pictures you sent your trainer back when we were still married. The ones I never used against you, because I thought being the bigger person meant something. Bernice's face went pale. I kept going. I sold the house my parents left me, changed the name on the deed. If none of you want to carry my name anymore, then I don't need to carry the one that's been spit on for loving too blindly. I didn't raise my voice, didn't pound the table, just finished with 1 quiet, steady sentence. Starting today, I am no longer responsible for your selfishness. After I got up and walked out, leaving them and a full, untouched dinner behind, I didn't look back. I wandered the neighborhood for hours, the same streets where my kids used to laugh on their bikes, where Bernice and I once rode side by side before betrayal ever had a name. By the time I returned home, it was almost 10 p.m. The house was silent, empty. On the table, a single torn piece of paper sat waiting. "We're disappointed in you. Hope you come to your senses soon. Salvador, Franklin, Damien," with Bernice's sloppy signature scribbled in the corner. I smiled, not a bitter smile, just tired, and finally at peace. The next morning, my phone lit up like a siren. Texts, calls, voicemails. Salvador said Erica was freaking out because the bank had sent a foreclosure warning. Franklin left frantic voice notes, swinging from blame to begging, then straight into threats. Damien, the only one who sent a single line. "I'm sorry. Would you give me a chance to talk?" Bernice? She launched her usual PR campaign, calling mutual friends, spinning tales about how I was mentally unstable and needed help, while painting the kids as just worried and acting out. Then Monday came. An email popped up from Malia, Franklin's fiancée. Subject line, "Thank you for giving me the truth." Attached were screenshots of Franklin using her credit card behind her back, and the desperate texts he'd sent me for gambling money. ones I had anonymously forwarded to her from a new burner email. She called off the engagement. Franklin crashed at a friend's place now, drunk most nights. Salvador got kicked out by Erica when she found out he'd been hiding debt from her for 3 years. Damien, poor kid, got suspended from school for non-payment, and even went as far as emailing my boss in hopes of getting me fired. But I laughed. Because my boss? He's the man who watched me raise those boys alone for 15 years. That night I sat by myself on the old couch, a glass of whiskey in hand, the warm yellow glow from the living room dim and steady. I thought about Eugene Wilson, the man they once called a failure. Then I looked in the mirror and saw a father who refused to be the foundation for selfish lives anymore. A man no longer afraid of loneliness because he had finally found himself again. Something irreversible happens the moment you rise after a lifetime of bowing down. When I signed the paperwork to legally change my last name, I didn't just give up a name. I let go of the man I used to be. My new name, Eugene Ramirez, the maiden name of my mother. A woman I never once saw cry, not when my father died, not when the whole neighborhood went under during the floods. I took her name because now I know. Strength isn't in a man's title. It's in the courage to stand alone when you must. They haven't stopped trying. Salvador sent me a letter, 3 pages long. The first half was an apology. The second, a request for me to co-sign his new loan application. Franklin threatened to sue me, claiming I was interfering with his personal life. And Bernice? She posted a status longer than a TED Talk, claiming she was the victim of a toxic father trying to destroy his own family. I didn't reply. But I did throw a party. Just a small backyard BBQ with some neighbors. My brother Henry and Audrey, the woman who makes me laugh just by getting the coffee ratio all wrong. We clinked our glasses and I said, for the first time in 30 years, I feel free. I don't know if I'll ever speak to my sons again. And no, I don't hate them. I don't have the energy to hate anymore. What I do know is this. I'll never again be anyone's doormat, not for the sake of being a father, not as a husband, not under any label that asks me to disappear. I am Eugene Ramirez. I'm 51 years old. I live in a small house with a white picket fence and a plan to visit Yellowstone next month. And I just started writing my first book. Failure is not the final word. If you've ever been called a failure, just remember, the ending is yours to write. No one else gets to hold the pen. Thank you for listening to my story. If it struck a chord in you, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs a wake-up call, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next journey. It might just be yours.